Ghosts of a protocol. The sky over Nyx 4 was the color of rusted iron, streaked with ash drifting from a distant volcanic vent. Nothing alive should have been out here. Nothing human, anyway. Aira Vance crouched low behind the twisted remains of an old Terran supply drone, her breath slow, measured. Her pulse barely shifted as the Dominion scout ship passed overhead. A smooth, sleek predator of black alloy and blue light. It didn't see her. It wouldn't. She knew how to hide from them. Her fingertips brushed over the jagged edge of a broken panel. Blood smeared the metal. Hers. But she didn't feel the cut. Not yet. The protocol saw to that. She waited 10 more seconds, then rose. The landscape was still, dead in all directions except the faint electrical buzz of salvaged gear and buried cables underfoot. She scanned the horizon. A Dominion sensor relay blinked red a kilometer away, partially buried in rock. That's why she was here. Data. Location pings. And maybe, if she got lucky, evidence of what she feared most. Aira moved with practiced silence. Every step was calculated, light, quick, ready to pivot. The air here was thinner than standard, just enough to keep a normal human on edge. But she wasn't quite normal anymore. Hadn't been since she volunteered. She reached the relay and slid a makeshift scrambler chip into the port. The device hissed softly, breaking the Dominion encryption. Aira pulled up the last 72 hours of sensor logs. Mostly patrol paths, scans, drone maintenance logs. Then she saw it, biosignatures. Human. Not just one. Dozens. Her brow furrowed. No human colonies existed within 6 systems of Nyx 4. No refugee convoys had been cleared by the treaties. The Dominion kept tight leashes on everything in post-war space. So who the hell were these people? And why were they being tracked? Before she could dig deeper, a high-pitched whine echoed across the rocks. Her head snapped up. Not engines, teleporters. For flashes of light blinked into existence in a circle around her. Shit! Dominion strike team. She dove just as plasma bolts scorched the ground where she'd stood. Her sidearm was already in her hand, though she barely remembered drawing it. Muscle memory? No. Protocol reflex. 2 of them rushed her, clicking in their native tongue, cold, efficient. She dropped to her knees, sliding under the first one strike, drove her blade upward through the armor under its chin. Blood sprayed, a pale green mist. The second aimed. She didn't think. The protocol didn't let her. Her body twisted, rolled. Aira came up behind him, fired once, point blank. The last 2 were retreating, signaling their ship for pickup. She didn't chase. Too risky. Instead, she hauled the wounded one toward cover. Still breathing, barely. He gurgled something in Sholvok. She stared into his dying eyes. "You're not supposed to be here," she said coldly. Then she saw the device clipped to his armor. Not standard issue. Dominion scientists sometimes carry them in field tests. Aira grabbed it and stepped back as the alien gasped his last. She pressed the interface. The screen flickered, showing lines of code in the Dominion's hieroglyphic script. She let the protocol do the translation. Subject analysis complete. Crimson DNA confirmed. Viable extraction begins next cycle. Aira's stomach turned. They weren't just tracking. They were studying. Hunting. Crimson protocol, DNA hadn't been seen in the open for decades. After the war, survivors were either hunted down or forced into exile. The galaxy had no room left for engineered weapons and human skin. She stood over the fallen soldiers, blood drying on her gloves, and looked up at the empty sky. Her implants buzzed, an alert from a long-dormant frequency. One she hadn't heard in years. It read, Crimson Protocol // code black / you are not alone. Aira stared at it. Her fingers trembled, just a little. Ghosts didn't talk. Ghosts didn't signal each other. Unless they were waking up. The Ember Core. The wind screamed like it had lungs. Aira stood at the mouth of the fissure, the jagged black rock of Erebus, 7 stretching downward into a molten, breathing heart. This place had once been alive with scientists, soldiers, and secrets. Now it was a tomb. The Ember Core facility was carved directly into the volcanic crust. She could still see the emergency lighting flickering faintly behind the blast doors, powered by geothermal vents. Power never truly died here. She slid her hand across a scorched control panel, pressing her thumb into a recessed sensor. It hissed, rejected her, then paused. A second later, the lock disengaged with a metallic groan. "Still remember me," she muttered, stepping into the stale dark. Inside, the temperature climbed fast. Pipes hissed overhead. The hum of long dormant systems stirred awake as she walked deeper. Her boots echoed on steel walkways. Ghosts moved in her mind. Her squad, her friends, her enemies, all long gone. The Crimson Protocol had been born here. Half science, half desperation. The war was turning, and humanity had done what it always did under pressure. It changed the rules. Down 2 more levels, she reached the sealed vault. The door was dented from the inside. Not comforting. She keyed the manual override. As the door split open, he blasted her like a furnace. The lights inside were red, casting shadows like claws. The air smelled like oil and blood. He was still here. Unit 07. They called him Dagger. He stood in the center of the chamber, connected to a vertical tank by thick tubes and old biointerfaces. Muscles taut, hair matted with old sweat, eyes closed but twitching beneath the lids. He hadn't aged a day. "Wake him," said a voice from the console. Aira spun, gun raised, then paused. A hologram flickered into form, blurry but unmistakable. Dr. Yelena Cross, the ghost of the Crimson Protocol herself. "You look older," the hologram said with a faint smile. "But you're still alive. That's something." "I thought you were dead," Aira muttered. "I am. Mostly. I left fragments of my consciousness in the mainframe in case the Dominion ever came back." The hologram looked toward Dagger. "And it seems they have. They're cloning," Aira said. "Or trying to. I found a tag on one of their soldiers. Crimson, DNA confirmed." Cross's expression hardened. "Then it's worse than I thought." The tank behind Dagger hissed. The fluid drained. He staggered as the cables retracted, muscles twitching violently. He hit the floor on one knee, coughing. Where am I?" His voice was gravel and venom. "Back in hell," Aira said softly. He looked up, and for a moment, she saw recognition. Then it faded behind suspicion. He was wired for survival, not trust. "You left us." "I survived." "Same thing." He stood slowly. The scars along his arms weren't from combat. They were surgical, precise. His eyes scanned the room like a wolf searching for threats. "What's happening?" he asked, voice calmer now. "The Dominion's not done," Aira said. "They're trying to remake us. Use our blood. Weaponize it again." A long silence. Then we kill them." "Not like before," she said. "That war nearly broke us. Broke me. We're not animals, Dagger." "We were never animals," he growled. "We were tools." Cross's hologram flickered. "The Ember Core still has access to Dominion transmission patterns. I can locate the cloning facilities." Aira nodded. "Do it, but patch me into old Crimson channels first. We'll need more than just the 2 of us." Cross tilted her head. "You're forming a unit." Aira looked at Dagger. He was already checking his old gear, and steady, eyes sharper by the second. "Something like that," she said. "But not for war. For truth." Dagger snorted. "Truth doesn't bleed. Dominion does." "Then maybe both will," she replied. Behind them, the Ember Core glowed brighter as systems long dormant surged to life. Blood and signal. The shattered skyline of Terra Nova hung on the edge of space like a broken crown. What used to be a thriving human colony was now a silent graveyard, its atmosphere thin, its surface scarred from orbital bombardments no one wanted to admit ever happened. Aira Vance stood inside the rusted remains of an old comms tower, watching the stars through a cracked dome. The cold bit through her jacket, but she barely noticed. Dagger sat nearby, calibrating a pulse rifle. His movements were precise, silent. He didn't speak much unless he had to. Aira had stopped expecting comfort from him a long time ago. "We've got one shot," she said finally. "Dominion's satellite net is tighter than ever. Once we light this up, they'll know exactly where we are." "That's the point," Dagger muttered. "Let them come." She shot him a look. "We're trying to build a rebellion, not a suicide note." He shrugged and kept working. In a way, he was still frozen in time. The war was the last place he'd truly lived. She couldn't blame him. She'd barely escaped it herself. A panel behind them sparked, then buzzed. The screen glowed faint blue. Dominion code filled the display. Live telemetry from their closest satellite. Exactly what they needed. You sure Cross's encryption still works? Dagger asked, skeptical. Aira smirked. If it doesn't, we'll know in about 12 seconds. She keyed in the protocol. The screen blinked, then cracked open a command line. Access granted. Just like that, Aira slid a data card into the port and uploaded the message. It wasn't just a call for help, it was a beacon. A trigger. To every Crimson Protocol survivor still breathing. To anyone who remembers what they made us. We're not done. They're not done. And this time, we choose what we fight for. She pressed send. The signal shot out through the dark, bouncing off old Terran satellites, buried beacons, relay towers hidden in junk ships. Some would ignore it. Some would curse her for dragging up the past. But some would answer. You think anyone's left? Dagger asked quietly. I don't know, she said. But I can't do this alone. A long silence followed. Then he stood. You never were alone, Vance. You just forgot what you are. She stared at him. Not angry. Just tired. And what's that exactly? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. A beep cut the moment short. New data streamed onto the screen. Coordinates. Clusters of dormant crimson implants were blinking to life. All over the sector. Cryopods. Refugees. Hidden agents. The protocol had been buried deep, and now it was stirring. But so was something else. Another ping. Dominion fleet activity. A ship vectoring toward Earth's orbit. Not just any ship. A biocore cruiser, the kind used for deep-sea weapon testing. They're planning a launch, Aira said. Weapons-grade biotech. They'll trigger another purge. Earth's still under treaty, Dagger said. They won't risk direct war. They don't need to, she replied. Not if they claim it's an accident. A genetic containment failure. No survivors, no witnesses. Dagger looked out the cracked dome window. A blue shimmer glowed faintly far off Earth. They think we're ghosts, he muttered. They forgot we were built to hunt them. Aira grabbed her rifle and data card, her pulse sharp with purpose. We hit the ship, she said. Board it, shut down the core, and get the evidence to Earth Command. If we prove Dominion's violating treaty, we force the galaxy to pay attention. That's suicide, Dagger said. Maybe, she replied. But it's better than letting them erase us quietly. He gave a sharp nod. Then we fight. Not for the protocol. Not for the war. Aira finished his thought. For the truth. The tower lights dimmed as Dominion sensors picked up their signal. They had minutes, maybe hours. But the message was already out. Across the stars, old codes were being remembered. Eyes were opening. And the blood was waking up. Over orbit. The Dominion biocore cruiser loomed in orbit like a silent executioner. From afar, it resembled a cathedral of metal and bone, smooth, curving spires growing out of its central mass, humming with stolen life. Aira Vance floated inside the stolen cargo pod, her heartbeat loud in the suit's sealed silence. Across from her, Dagger checked his maglock boots, face unreadable behind his visor. Above them, the Earth turned slowly, blue, fragile, unaware. Aira tapped into the comms. You good? Always, Dagger replied. You. She hesitated. Then, not even close. The pod jolted as it latched onto the cruiser's underbelly. Dominion protocols pinged them once, then dropped. Cross's viral override had worked. The ship thought they were part of the inbound logistics run. That was their only window. The pod hissed open. Inside the cruiser, the air was unnaturally warm, and it pulsed with low, rhythmic vibrations, like the ship was breathing. Dominion biotech wasn't just alive, it adapted. Aira felt it in her implants, the subtle tug of recognition. The cruiser knew her kind. Dagger swept left, Aira right, their rifles scanning the dark. No resistance yet, just the steady sound of their boots on the living floor. They reached the core chamber in minutes. Aira hacked the final door. It slid open with a groan that made her teeth ache. The chamber was enormous, circular, ringed with pulsing conduits that fed into a single node at the center. Suspended in a glass cradle was a crimson husk, a cloned human form, twitching, growing, still half-formed. Aira stared at it. It was her face, Or something that once had been. Dagger exhaled slowly. They weren't cloning soldiers. They were cloning you. No, she whispered. They were cloning all of us. Me, you, the entire protocol. Extracted from our missions. Our kills. Our pain. He looked up. Weaponizing memory. Before they could move, alarms blared. Dominion override kicked in. A swirl of smoke and nanite mist flooded the chamber. Too late. Automated turrets folded from the ceiling. Dagger shoved Aira behind a column as the first volley of plasma hissed past. "Can you shut it down?" he shouted. "I need 30 seconds." He moved before she finished the sentence, leaping into cover and laying down suppressive fire. The old rage was in him now, sharp, honed. The kind of violence they'd been built for. Aira dropped to one knee, hacking the mainframe interface. The code writhed beneath her fingers, shifting like a living thing. Cross's backdoor gave her partial control, but the core was waking fast. Too fast. Warning. Bioreplication sequence initiated. Crimson prototype detonation in T-minus 90 seconds. Her pulse spiked. They booby-trapped the clone. Dagger yelled from across the chamber. "Then we don't shut it down. We blow the cradle." "No," she snapped. "The data, we need it. Proof. The protocol has to be exposed." He was already moving. She cursed and forced the override anyway. Her implants burned as she shoved the last of her neural juice into the port. A scream rang out. Not hers, something from inside the core. Something aware. The detonation timer froze. Dagger reached the cradle and fired a short burst directly into the bioheart. The clone's body convulsed and went still. All around them, the chamber fell quiet. Then came the deep groan of engines shifting. Dominion ships had arrived. 3 cruisers. Aira's HUD lit up like a bloodstorm. "Evac!" Dagger asked. "No time. We trigger the failsafe and launch the core module. Let the Earth fleet intercept it. And us." She looked at him, her voice firm. "We stay." He nodded once. No argument. Together, they moved back to the control dais. Aira keyed the final command. "Crimson Protocol. Evidence pod launched." Signal locked to Earth command. The pod shot from the ship's spine like a bullet of truth. Below, blue turned to white as Earth caught the sun. Aira stood with Dagger at the viewing port as Dominion cruisers closed in. The ship was dying. The clone was gone. But the truth was flying free. "You ever think this is how it ends?" she asked. "I thought we were already dead," he said. Then added, "Guess we had one last thing to bleed for." And together, they faced the fire.